Released in America on the 8th of November 2016 for the Nintendo 3DS, with a release date in Europe in 2017 and no plans of a Japanese release, we have Harvest Moon: Skytree Village. Developed by Tablet Incorporated and published by Natsume, Skytree Village marks the third Harvest Moon game released after parting ways with Marvelous as a developer, following Harvest Moon: The Lost Valley and Harvest Moon: Seeds of Memories, both reviews you can catch on the channel. Since Natsume owned the Harvest Moon name, the Marvelous series has since been continuing under the title of Story of Seasons, and you can also catch that review here. The other game that both Harvest Moon and Story of Seasons have to compete against is Stardew Valley, a game released back in February 2016, and you can also catch that review here as well. In Skytree Village, you play as your self-insert farmer who is led into a desolate land by a harvest sprite. The sprite then takes you to the harvest goddess's spring, where she tells you that because of the land being neglected, her powers gradually grew weaker to a point where nothing would grow and everyone had moved away. So it's now up to you to save the land and restore Skytree Village with your pro farming skills and the power of caring. Skytree Village introduces some new characters to the game, with some familiar faces from the Lost Valley and Seeds of Memories making a reappearance. But is the game any good? Find out in The Good. A feature I thoroughly enjoyed in the Lost Valley makes a welcome return, and that is the crop growing mechanic. The terraforming from the Lost Valley returns, and depending on the soil quality, how high or low the terrain is, as well as whether it's the preferred season or not for the crops, you may get crop mutations. So scallions, for example, are a mutation of onions, and they can be made by planting onions in dry soil at medium to high elevation in spring. These mutated crops can then be sold, and once a certain amount of them have been sold, you'll be able to buy their seeds from Sam the Merchant. On top of that, mutated seeds also have the potential to mutate further, so by sowing the scallion seeds under the same conditions, you can potentially have them mutate into petite onions. The other plus side is that all crops can grow in all seasons, but if a crop is grown in its preferred season, it gets that potential to mutate. That was one of the things I really liked about the Lost Valley, and I'm glad it's back in Skytree Village. Another thing I liked fixed an issue I had with the Lost Valley, and that was the lack of town. As you progress through the game, several people will move in and start living alongside you on the land. You initially start with the merchant Sam, who's a returning face from the Lost Valley and Seeds of Memories, and eventually over time you'll have a small town in which you can talk to, befriend, or potentially romance some of the townsfolk, which will ultimately lead to marriage and starting a family. Your journal keeps track of who's who, as well as how much they like you, and as you complete quests for them, you can even unlock events with the townsfolk and see how they interact with you and one another. Townsfolk moving in also plays a role in the story, and I think they feel more involved than they have been in comparison to the Lost Valley. I'm also quite welcome to the character models, as I found that they're an improvement over the Lost Valley, and definitely over Seeds of Memories. For a Harvest Moon game, I found it was very easy to earn money. In the beginning you can blow all your money on seeds and sell the produce to Sam, or if you're playing smart you would sell it to Bastian, the owner of the inn, as well as a master chef for more money. Same can be said with flowers, as you can sell them to Sam or get a little more by selling them to Carol the florist. Once you get the hammer and start mining, you can get Gus the blacksmith to refine the ore before selling them to Sam for nearly 10 times the amount it costs to refine them. This really comes in handy later in the game, where you would need the money to purchase larger house upgrades and to furnish your house. The customization options available in Skytree Village has certainly expanded, allowing you to change wallpaper, floors and curtains, as well as your haircut and outfit, and matched with terraforming allows you to customize how your farm will look, adding a unique experience to the game. But with all things good, there must come the bad. The flow of time is an issue again in Skytree Village, especially on contest days where you need to have a lot of your jobs done before 10 AM. Even with upgraded tools which will let you farm over a larger area, you'll generally find it's very hard pressed to water and or fertilise your farm, harvest or plant new seeds, feed, groom and obtain produce from your animals before 10 AM. Because watered squares generally dry up 24 hours later, managing that with when the harvest sprites are available to help makes things even more hectic. Harvest sprites are available from 8 AM to 6 PM every weekday and will require one day of rest before being available again. Each harvest sprite specialises in one job, so the one that waters your crops can only water them once every second day. Animals, much like in the Lost Valley, will only finish eating at the nearest hour, so feed them at 8:01 and they'll be done by 9. This process makes getting produce from them a real pain. The game still suffers from a lack of festivals, with a fishing and cooking contest held each season, and while there are unique festivals each season with the exception of winter, They'll only be available providing that the respective townsperson has moved in. Most of the festivals themselves are more or less competitions, much like the fishing and cooking contests, and require you to compete against fellow townsfolk. I don't feel like I'm connecting with people in those events, which was something I always looked forward to in some of the other games. Gathering materials is still a real pain, and with certain requests requiring very specific items, I have once again resorted to save scumming, otherwise known as saving and reloading again until I get what I needed. Good examples of these was when I was needing a bed made for my house. One of the items needed was wool, and my sheep liked me enough to the point where getting higher quality wool was a lot more common than getting regular quality wool, so I had to keep saving before I shore the sheep, and reloading if it wasn't the wool I wanted. I think reworking the requirements would really help so that if you had higher quality materials, you would only need less of them to make what you want. Interestingly enough, when it comes to finishing requests, the game advises you that you have higher quality goods and if you want to use those as well. So I feel this is somewhat inconsistent as well as annoying. The story is a little on the short side. As opposed to the traditional 3-year time limit, I was able to complete the story by winter of my first year. With the exception of a certain character getting trapped, the game chooses to run at your pace instead of creating a sense of urgency. The parts of the land that haven't been restored yet will be in white, and you won't be able to cross into it, limiting you to where you're able to farm. However, the land is a little too big, and making use of it all ties into the time management problem I mentioned earlier. Now with my complaints out of the way, I can give the opinion. I think Natsume and Marvelous are on the right track, but some improvements I feel might be needed, as the complaints I have on Skytree Village mostly mirror the ones I had on Lost Valley. While people will say what's the point in Harvest Moon and Story of Seasons anymore since Stardew Valley exists, I feel both Harvest Moon and Story of Seasons have a type of atmosphere that I'm more at home with that Stardew Valley seems lacking in. I did enjoy the 50 hours I invested into Skytree Village, but I think Natsume and Marvelous can certainly do a bit better. As a thought, since the crop mutation mechanic was something I really liked, maybe introduce something like crossbreeding seeds alongside the terraforming in the near future. It will certainly deepen the mechanic a bit more, if you'd excuse the pun, and allow players to experiment planting different seed combinations and hoping to make new crops. Aside from that, I think it's time for the rating. Harvest Moon, Skytree Village is still going to get that missing turnip out of 10. If you really want to bring back the nostalgia I had from the games, that's going to be a good start. Otherwise, you'll get a green cabbage out of 10. It sells better and looks slightly different from a regular cabbage, but still at the end of the day, it's a cabbage. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review.